Welcome back for another deep dive. You know, we love to look beyond the surface. So today we're talking about something you probably encounter every day, but don't really think twice about.
I bet I know what it is.
Hit me with it.
Certifications.
Right.
You know those little symbols on products that tell you how and where they were made?
You got it. And today we're focusing on planner certifications, kind of a niche topic, but it reveals a lot about a company's commitment to things like quality and ethical sourcing.
Yeah, most people don't think about what goes into making a planner, but it's actually pretty fascinating.
Agreed. And we've got a great source to guide us today, an article by Leo Shea, CEO of Line Paper Products, called Unveiling the Impact, FSC, ISO 9001, SEDEX, and BSCI certifications in the planner manufacturing industry.
Ooh, yeah. Leo's been in the industry for over 10 years, so he's seen firsthand how these certifications are changing the game.
Exactly. And one of the biggest takeaways from the article is that there's a real shift happening right now. Consumers are becoming way more aware of where their products come from and how they're made.
It's true. And the article even mentions that a whopping 70% of consumers prefer products from sustainable sources.
That's huge. So it's not just a niche thing anymore. It's something a lot of people care about.
Absolutely. And it makes sense choosing a planner made from responsibly sourced materials or produced in a factory with fair labor practices. It allows you to align your purchases with your values.
Totally. So let's start breaking down these certifications one by one, starting with the FSC, which stands for the Forest Stewardship Council.
Okay, so the FSC is all about responsible forest management.
So when I see that FSC label on a planner, what does that actually tell me?
It means the paper in your planner comes from forests that are managed responsibly. That means taking care of the environment, protecting wildlife habitats, and respecting the rights of workers and local communities.
Okay, so it's about a lot more than just planting a tree for everyone that's cut down.
Exactly. It's about ensuring the entire forest ecosystem is healthy and sustainable for generations to come.
That makes sense, but there's a whole range of certifications out there, right?
There are. And each one focuses on a different aspect of the manufacturing process.
So what about ISO 9001? What's that all about?
All right, so ISO 9001 is a little different. It focuses on a company's quality management system.
Quality management system, huh? What does that even mean?
It's basically a way of ensuring that the planner you buy meets certain standards of quality and consistency. Think of it as a behind-the-scenes look at how the company operates.
I see. So how does that actually benefit me as the consumer?
Well, for one thing, it means you're less likely to end up with a planner that falls apart after a few months. You know, those spiral bounds that come undone or pages that rip easily.
Ugh, yeah, I've definitely experienced that. Not fun.
Exactly. ISO 9001 helps companies streamline their processes, reduce errors, which ultimately leads to better products and happier customers.
Makes sense. The article even mentioned that companies with this certification have seen a 30% increase in customer satisfaction.
Wow, that's impressive.
It really is, and it shows that these certifications aren't just about ticking boxes. They can have a real impact on a company's performance and ultimately the satisfaction of their customers.
Totally agree. Now let's move on to SEDEX and BSCI, which stand for Supplier Ethical Data Exchange and Business Social Compliance Initiative, respectively.
Okay, those sound a bit more complex. What are those all about?
These certifications are all about ensuring ethical practices throughout the supply chain.
So we're talking about fair wages, safe working conditions, the overall well-being of the people involved in making the planner.
Exactly. And it's becoming increasingly important to consumers. Studies show that 65% of consumers actively look for products made under fair conditions.
That's a lot of people. It seems like consumers are really starting to connect the dots between their purchases and the impact those purchases have on the world.
Absolutely. And that's where SEDEX and BSCI come in. They provide a framework for companies to monitor and improve their ethical performance, not just within their own facilities, but throughout their entire supply chain.
So it's not just about the factory where the planner is assembled. It's about every step along the way, from the sourcing of raw materials to the transportation of the finished product.
You got it. It's about creating a more transparent and accountable system, which ultimately benefits everyone involved, from the workers to the consumers.
Wow. It's like shining a light on every corner of the manufacturing process to make sure everything is being done ethically and responsibly.
That's a great way to put it. It's about bringing those ethical considerations to the forefront and empowering consumers to make informed choices.
I love that. All right, so we've covered the basics of FSC, ISO 9001, SUDEX, and BSCI. But these certifications aren't just individual pieces of the puzzle, are they?
No, they're not, and that's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, what happens when you combine these certifications? What kind of impact do they have collectively?
Ooh, yeah, that's a great question. And that's exactly what we'll be exploring in part 2 of this deep dive into the world of planner certifications. Okay, so we spent part 1 talking about all these individual certifications: FSC, ISO 9000, 9001, SEDEX, BSCI. But what happens when a company decides to go for like the whole set?
Yeah, that's a great question because when you start combining these certifications, you're not just checking boxes, you're actually creating a much bigger impact.
So it's like they're really committing to responsible manufacturing, right? They're thinking
Yeah,
about the environment, the workers, the quality of the product, the whole picture.
exactly. And it goes even deeper than that. It's about weaving those values into the very fabric of the company.
That's awesome. So let's break down these cumulative benefits, starting with quality assurance. We've all been there, right? And you buy something and it breaks way too quickly. It's so frustrating.
Ugh, tell me about it. It's like throwing money away.
Right. And the article actually mentioned that businesses with quality certifications like ISO 9001 see 20 to 25% fewer quality-related complaints.
Wow, that's huge. It's a win-win because the consumer gets a better product and the company saves money in the long run.
Totally. Okay, so then there's the ethical side of things, which we touched on earlier. How do these certifications ensure that products are made under fair and ethical conditions?
Well, one of the biggest things is transparency. These certifications require companies to be really upfront about their sourcing and production methods.
So it's like I can actually trace the journey of my planner from the forest to the factory.
Yeah, exactly. And that transparency builds trust. It shows that the company isn't trying to hide anything.
Which is so important these days, right? There's so much greenwashing and misleading marketing out there. It's hard to know who to trust.
It really is. So these certifications provide a tangible way for companies to show that they're walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Okay, I'm getting it now. So it's not just about buying better planner, it's about supporting companies that are doing things the right way.
Precisely. It's about using our purchasing power to make a difference.
And speaking of impact, these certifications also have some pretty significant business advantages too, right?
Oh, absolutely. For one, they can really improve risk management.
Risk management. Fill me in.
Okay, so by implementing these standards, companies are forced to take a hard look at their supply chain and operations. They have to identify and address potential risks,
Like what kind of risks?
all sorts of things, ensuring safe working conditions, preventing environmental damage, mitigating the risk of forced labor,
Mm-hmm.
really thinking ahead.
So it's not just about reacting to problems, it's about preventing them in the first place.
Exactly. It's about building a more resilient and sustainable business.
I like that. Okay, what about access to new markets? Does that come into play?
Big time. A lot of retailers in international markets actually require these certifications as part of their partnership criteria.
So if a company wants to expand their reach, they need to get certified.
Exactly. And this is especially true for companies that want to sell in places like the European Union, where certain certifications are mandatory.
So it's not just about appealing to consumers, it's about meeting the demands of the global marketplace.
Got it. And finally, we can't forget about consumer trends. We talked about how people are increasingly looking for sustainable and ethical products.
Yeah, and it seems like that trend is only getting stronger.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
So companies that invest in these certifications are really investing in their future. They're showing that they're listening to what consumers want.
And that they're committed to doing things the right way.
Absolutely. And all of this comes down to the two key strategies that Leo Shia highlighted in his article: evaluating the need for certification and then investing in the training and resources to achieve it.
So it's a process, but the payoff can be huge, both for the business and for the positive impact they're creating.
For sure. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to you, the listener. The choices you make have a real impact.
Okay, so how do we as consumers use this information to make better choices? What's the takeaway here?
That's a great question. And that's exactly what we'll be discussing in the final part of this deep dive.
Wow, so we've really gone deep on this topic of planner certifications.
Yeah, we have. And I think it's safe to say that there's a lot more to consider than meets the eye.
For sure. It's like this whole hidden world of standards and practices that most of us never even knew existed.
It's true, but now that we've peeled back the layers, it's hard to ignore.
I know what you mean. And I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is that our choices as consumers actually matter.
They absolutely do. Every time we buy something, we're casting a vote for the kind of world we want to live in.
And if more of us start prioritizing products from certified manufacturers, It could actually shift the whole industry in a more sustainable and ethical direction.
I think so too. It's
Good.
like we have this collective power to drive change through our purchasing decisions.
That's really empowering. And it's not just about buying a better planner, it's about supporting companies that align with our values.
Exactly. It's about making choices that reflect our beliefs about how things should be made and who should benefit from those processes.
Okay, so I'm feeling inspired, but also a little overwhelmed. Where do we even start?
Well, the first step is awareness.
Right.
Just knowing about these certifications is huge.
Right. And then we can start looking for those certifications when we're shopping.
Exactly. Take a minute to check the product packaging or do a quick search online to see if the company is transparent about their practices.
And don't be afraid to ask questions. If you can't find information about a company's certifications, reach out to them directly.
Yeah. Lets them know that you care about these issues and that it influences your purchasing decisions.
Because the more we demand transparency and accountability, the more companies will have to step up.
Exactly. It's about creating a culture of continuous improvement where sustainability and ethical practices become the norm.
I love that. So it's not just about buying a planner, it's about creating a better future.
That's a great way to put it. It's about recognizing that our choices have a ripple effect and that even something as simple as choosing a planner can contribute to a larger movement.
Well said. And on that note, I want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of planner certifications.
It's been a pleasure. I hope you've learned something new and feel inspired to make more conscious choices.
Me too. And remember, every purchase is an opportunity to make a difference.
Absolutely. So let's use that power wisely.
Until next time, happy planning.